Welcome, 25 with Tech 25. I'm Tim Higgins, Secretary, District 25.
I'm Andrew Benton, Data and Systems Specialist for the district.
I'm Chris Fano, Director of Technology.
And we're going to do it a little bit different today. We're going to actually head out to the buildings. So we'll see you over there.
Okay.
I'm walking, years and days I'm talking, but you and me, I'm hoping that you come back to me. I'm lonely as I can be, I'm waiting for your company. I'm hoping that you come back to me.
Personally, I love technology, so that's what draws me here. And it's always cool to see the new things that are just being made every day. Like, I haven't seen this thing until I came here. And then I walk in the classroom, I see this, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? So then I go around and start experimenting a little bit with all the things on here and this. And then I just look in and see, wow, this thing's amazing. So that's kind of what draws me to it, now that I know everything that you're able to do with it. I'm James Mikarsky. This right here is the HP Sprout. This is probably one of the coolest things I have ever seen, I have to say. And there's a lot of different apps as well for this that you can use. Like this right here, I have a puzzle thing set up, so it cuts up a picture, and you have to try to match all the pieces to this picture, but there's a lot of other things that you can do. Like there's drawing in here. You can take a pad and just draw whatever you want with colors and everything. There's a lot of other things. There's 3D stuff as well on here. Like you can just go into something like this, and then there's a lot of 3D stuff from people in the community as well. So you can just go and browse through a bunch of things that people have made. The things people do with this is just amazing. Is there anything you guys want to know?
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit, obviously you're very excited about what it can do and the interaction. Talk a little bit more about what it allows you to do that maybe a typical setup doesn't allow you to do. And what really gets you excited about where you see this going?
Well, the typical setup, you usually just got a screen in front of you and then keyboard, mouse. That's all there is to it. This, you've got
screen, pad, mouse, keyboard, and you can interact with both this and this. And you've got this stylus as well. So there's a lot more you can do with this than just the normal computer. And not only that, I have the marketplace open here, but this functions just as a normal computer as well. So if there's anything personal you need to do on here, you've got a web browser or anything, you can just go ahead and do that as well. So this is multi-purpose. You've got fun things you can do, or educational if you would like. And then you've got just your everyday things you can do on here.
And then is there a connection between designing in this and the 3D printing world? Is that a connection between like you build in here and you can send it right off to the 3D printer? Or is that not what this thing functions as?
You can do that with this. And also, there's this. I should probably show this. This is a 3D printing scan pad here. So anything you put on it, it'll scan and it'll recreate with one of the 3D printers, maybe like that one. And someone did this with it. They put the C3PO on and scanned this. So you're able to do a lot, especially with just this pad. You could put a pen on there or something and it would recreate the pen to the best of its ability.
So just to clarify, you put that C3PO on the pad and scanned it, and
Yes.
then it printed out the other C3PO in the 3D printer.
Yes, that's it.
That's great.
Recreate it pretty accurately too, if I can say. And of course, the colors you can print with one color in the printer.
That's great.
And kind of speaking to like where
go around and experiment with things on here just to see what you can do. If there's a challenge, usually I just try to solve it myself and see like all the different things that you could try to do to solve it. Because there's probably a lot of things that can go wrong. I personally haven't seen much that's wrong with it, or if that has gone wrong with it. But if there is something, just looking into it yourself is kind of the most fun thing to do, of course, because then you can learn a lot by doing that. Otherwise, it's the computer, so you can just look up what other people have to say about it, see if you can fix it that way.
Personally, I don't own any sort of VR-related gear yet. Hopefully I'll get some, but I like a lot of, like, with VR is that you can do so many things, so many possibilities. If you know how to code for VR, you are pretty much set because endless amount of imagination, endless amount of fun. There is no stopping anything. I feel like it's going to start taking over classrooms. Like, there's going to be a lot more VR-acquainted things, like with science, you can go inside a body, so that will be easier to teach, and including for health. And even with 3D printing, which we have back here, you can go inside a world where you can see your 3D printed object, or maybe even build a 3D printed object, which I find is very interesting. VR is virtual reality. Okay, so I'm just going to use one, the HTC Vive, which just came out in March, is especially cool because it has a lot more advanced technology than some other things. So pretty much a virtual reality thing is these big goggles that you put on your head, and that's linked to a very high-powered computer that you need to run it, and pretty much you go into a world unlike anything you've ever seen. Let's say you're in home and it's raining outside and you want to go outside, you can go outside, you can play games, you can do endless things.
What do you think the most exciting thing about something like virtual reality would do for schools or kids learning in school?
Take them anywhere, because I know some, like, the economy with the whole field trips, it's not really a thing anymore because it's hard to get field trips with all the money. So imagine just having VR, putting on goggles, and going somewhere where you never think you would go before. If I could be some kid that would never be able to go out of the country, but I could put these things on and be in space, in France, in Paris, well, the same thing, in Germany, in Russia, Italy, Australia, Japan, pretty much anywhere.
And then, again, and you may not know about this other side, or you might, but just the idea of augmented reality, is that the space that you've done any work? Or
I've heard a lot about it. Augmented reality is like Google goggles or glasses, or a new thing where you just put them on, and it interacts with stuff in your world as well. So let's say, like, you could put them on, you could see weather, Netflix, Xbox, anything pretty much related to internet you could see in your world, which is pretty cool.
Well, my name is Jenny DeSavel, and I am currently in drama right now, but last quarter I was in 3D printing, and right now I'm working on coding some links chain, and this is how it turns out.
Oh, great.
So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, did you have any experience doing this before that class?
Well, I had a little bit of kind of on coding. It was more like blocks.
Okay.
As the quarter before, I took robotics, and we got to code for the robot, but I really like this.
And so when you got into the class and you kind of started working on the coding side of it, was it interesting, was it frustrating, or what kept your interest as that went on?
Well, it was really frustrating in the beginning to kind of try and pick up on some of them. And I just kind of had to play around with it a little bit, and it was really aggravating. I was really not happy with it, so I just kept trying and trying and trying, because I like to be the best in my class, and so I just kept trying to do it. And when I finally got it, I was so happy.
Oh, that's great. And so during that time, obviously there were different things to try. What ways did you go about trying to find more about it? What resources did you use, or how did you find the help that you needed to get past that roadblock?
Well, Ms. Roman actually has a book of just some basic coding, language in there, and that was basically really all you need to do all these different kind of codes. Is you just need a few simple codes and just put them together. I like to think of it as a puzzle you need to put together in the right way for it all to fit together to make the big picture. And so I would try different combinations and kind of think about, well, what would this do to the code, and then I would try it out and see what would happen.
That's great. And so now a lot of people, when they think about coding, they think about making a program or doing a video game, but you're actually doing some coding that's going to an actual object. Can you just talk a little bit about how does that work? The code does what into what program, and then how does an actual object come out?
Okay, so you just, like I've been saying with the code language, there's certain keywords like, I actually have the code printed out for my chain here, like difference. That's going to tell the computer that you need to subtract something from something else. And then this is the object, and then it's going to translate this for these specific coordinates, subtract this. So It's
that-
pretty straightforward.
Well, that's great. So in that case, you have a cylinder.
Yeah,
right?
I have a
And that you're
cylinder.
actually then removing, in essence, the inside of the cylinder
Yes.
to get the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another code or another language that actually then puts them together. And you're having
Yes.
to, okay, and then in that picture, the top of that, can you explain how that part works?
Okay, so this is like a model that the computer has shown you of how it's gonna actually turn out once it's printed out. Of course, when it first comes out of the printer, it's gonna have some supports because it can't just come out like that. It's gonna topple over itself. So, but once you remove the supports, this is actually what it'll look like, except it can move around because obviously the links aren't attached to each other.
I think the last thing that I'd be interested in is, where do you see this helping you or helping people in the future to be able to know how to do this stuff? Where do you think the benefit is going to be as you get older or when you're looking for a job, to be able to just understand this world of coding and 3D printing?
Well, coding is obviously, math and science is very important in the work world it's just one of those things that's always progressing, always moving forward, and there's always going to be jobs in math and science because those things are really important to the society. And knowing coding, which is a huge part of technology in general, it's very beneficial. That will get you a job like right away. Depends on what you're looking for.
Sure. What's kept you interested in it? What keeps you going, even though you're not in this class anymore?
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you coming back to this idea?
Well, I love the idea where I can write in something into a computer, just type it up, and then there's this object that just appears, and then I get to it gets to print out, and then I get to physically touch what I've typed into a computer. And I prefer that over the other computers just because I like the preciseness of coding. It's at this point, I want this exactly at here, and I think it gives the best product because with other programs like Sculptris, which Mitchell is using right now, you get to play around with a ball of clay with your mouse, but I don't feel like you can do as much. You cannot create these links with Sculptris. Well, that might be helpful if you're trying to make a curved line because they don't do curves very well with coding. I just feel like you can really get at it quicker and more precise, and that's why I like it.
We're going to frame this under the idea of emerging technology. Okay, this idea that this is a space and an opportunity where kids get to explore and really interact with equipment and skills that they don't get to do in other places, which is great. And what do you guys really see that being able to do for the kids who walk through that door that maybe they don't get to experience in other classes?
The 3D printing, one of the neat things is for them to, the ones that have an idea or a concept of something that they do, and actually have it physically created. And with the class we had a number of different 3D design programs. One where they sculpt things, one where they do things in code, and one where they're just putting the shapes onto the screen. So they work with the three of them and see which one they like the best as far as creative. Some of them like the code, like Jenny's. She actually made that chain writing the code for it.
From scratch, yeah. I think what this classroom offers is the hands-on, so it's not just abstract, and it allows kids to a little bit more creative freedom. It allows them to follow their passion. We don't claim to be experts in anything. We have kids that walk through this door like Mitch, who knows just about anything and everything there is to know about virtual reality, and I know next to nothing about that. But then we have kids that really they find that they're good in things, like Jenny will discovered that she was really good at coding. She kind of became my go-to student for troubleshooting, which was cool. And so she liked that, and it helped us out as well.
She would go and help other students with the coding then.
So it helps them discover things about themselves too, and here it's a lot of self-discovery as well. So they come in with skills, but then they discover they have these skills too that they didn't know.
And I think the part too about saying that we're not the experts in all this, and one of the neat things is sometimes there will be a student that comes in that we learn from too. You know, so it's like
Yeah.
it's a back and forth. The students we're showing, and they'll come up with something. It's like, and then we'll kind of work together, and it gives a little something for us to help for the next students coming along too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, when a new product comes into the room and you open the box and put it out, do you just let them go? Do you just let them figure it out?
It depends.
Do you learn a
Yeah.
little bit about it first? or
We
just
did
have-
that with the Sprout. You know, they saw it and I said, hey, go for it, go play with it. Let me know what it's capable of, you know, and that's kind of how we got some students to really take off with that. But sometimes if it's you know, we have to look at the safety issues, you know, like with 3D printing. Sometimes you,
And what we're doing with 3D printing now, we learned the 3D printing first, and with the program the way it is this year, the students in the elective, they put a form in, a queue as far as what they wanted printed, and then we'd print them. Denise would go through and make sure that things were lined up and set right. Next year with the program, the 3D printer will be right in the Smart Mod with them. So the neat thing is they will be the ones that need to figure out how to put it in. And it's scary on one end because, you know, as teachers you want to do those final
Yeah.
tweaks, but the other time, another thing, it's like, okay, well then they get to learn. Why didn't it work? You know, why didn't this, I had it all set up and it didn't go in, didn't work, or there's no supports on there, it's not, you know, so it's like, it adds another dimension to them to understand the 3D printing even, you know, a step farther.
And so, you know, I think knowing this class for many years and it's changed over that time, maybe you guys can speak to a little bit about how you've seen things change. Is it just in the equipment that comes through, or is it in this changing skill sets? And then maybe the second part of that, you have a lot of kids who love to stay here. They love to come here after school and be around. What do you think draws them back, whether it was 5 years ago or now? What keeps them wanting to come back?
I think a lot of it is the variety that we offer in here, because we have access to so many different skills and levels of skills, of hands-on opportunities, building, problem solving, so they can really follow their passion and interest. Sometimes, and this is maybe a little off the beaten track a little bit, but with this new skill set coming in and them being able to troubleshoot and reiterate and fix their problems, you know, we focus a lot on the process, but then we're stuck in this very rigid time schedule. So that is an issue we'd have to tackle.
Right, there's always constraints.
There's always constraints, and so that's been hard to follow through with the students because they get started on something and they're passionate about it and they want to fix it, and then class is done. You know, and if it's a Friday, I'll have to say to them, you have to remind me on Monday because I have 6 other classes, and you know, so that's the frustrating part of it, because we do get really deep into things that maybe in other classes they may just hit surface level, and then here we can really go deeper into, you know, what their interests and passions are. I don't know, does that answer your question? I kind of went off the track a little bit.
That idea that there are a lot of things, not only are they interested in doing it, but it has a scope that exists beyond just a 45-minute.
Yeah.
I think that's what's cool. I think that's why kids like to come back.
Yeah, there's like real world connections. So
Right.
it's, like I said it before, it's not just abstract. They're working on things in here that connect to their own lives. So that's a huge part of keeping their interest and why they come in and why they want to come in and why they come in after school. And at lunch, we always have kids in here at lunch as well, you know, and we have to turn kids away sometimes. We have to say, not today.
Which is where the scheduling is right now. We have our lunch, our prep period, and another during the 3, 6, 7, 8th grade lunch, and that opens it up so that
They
6,
can come
7th,
in.
or 8th graders, if they want to come in at lunch, they can.
That's great.
Yeah.
And maybe, I know the last cool question, kind of big question maybe, is this idea of like connecting to real world, connecting to careers. There's something about this place or these types of experiences where you want kids to work on problem solving and collaboration and being creative and that piece. But then there's this other kind of conversation, which is this is preparing them for the next jobs that nobody knows and that whole rhetoric. Where do you guys see it? Is it a balance between passion, creativity, exploration, and preparing them? Or has the focus shifted over the time where you feel some need to say, we are now the first step for them to prepare for the engineering and the digital design world? So I don't know if you guys could speak to that balance, if you think about that often between, hey,
Yeah.
we just need to explore here versus we're getting them ready, or do you
I do think it's changed a bit over the years. I think in the past, they could come in and say, yes, I'm interested in woodworking, and they would follow that path, or metals, or plastic. And it is way more open-ended now. So they have a lot of avenues to travel, because I think employers are looking for that person who is flexible and open to other things. They can work on their own. They are self-driven, but yet they can work in a group and collaboratively with others. They can problem solve on their own or in a group. I think those are the skills that kids are going to need in the future, for sure.
Right.
I don't know, did I interrupt you? Were you going to say something else?
I like that. It's like, I think that's the way.
So I think that has changed.
Yeah.
I think in the past it's been more specific avenues, and now it's a little bit more open-ended and flexible.
Right. So it applies to kind of everything. And the tools have changed, and the process really, the way we're going about it, the process is different, but really hasn't. I mean, even going back to, making a clock out of wood, which the process really should have been the same as far as looking, creating, discovering on your own. This is the program we have now. I think it's allowing that, opening up more for that.
Yeah, that's great. Do you guys have other questions? I think that's nice, because I think that piece of the tools have changed, but a lot of the process and the skills are still things that we value that
Stay
we
the
don't
same.
necessarily get
Yeah.
in other places.
Right.
And there is that exploration and creativity. There is that teamwork and problem solving and having to, again, be resourceful and self-directed on their own. Back to the mods, learning how they're doing it. Back to woodworking, where they're having to be able to learn a craft that they didn't have. And I think that's what's neat about these experiences is it's not something brand new other than the tools, but you're still teaching these real life skills that could be applied into
Various fields,
So-
right, for
And
sure.
speaking of careers and jobs that they're going to find, what employers want is logic. Logic is behind so much. And
Well, that's true.
Logic gets pinned to programming and coding so often. It's actually called logic, where
Yeah.
everything that's happening in here requires logic.
Yeah.
Step by step, or
That's
maybe
true.
not step by step at all, but still a logical flow. And so that's what they're looking for. That's what they're getting.
Yeah, we spent, we did do that in robotics where we did programming. We spent some time on flow charting and logically,
Right.
What is logical? What would be the next logical step?
Right. We're just doing a
And it's
flowchart.
not as easy as they think it
Yeah,
is.
we're just getting up in the morning and getting ready and coming out and putting a flow chart together, and it's just that they would put things down in the flow chart. It's like, well, you're missing something totally. What happened to this? What happened to that? You're not thinking the logical flow.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's great. Well, number
Good.
one, we very much appreciate your time and coming in. I know you're super busy. Thank you for helping.